Today, I'd like to talk about an interesting and important topic: psychology facts about women, focusing on body language, love language, and human behavior. Human behavior is a fascinating subject because so much of what we communicate is not through words, but through gestures, expressions, and subtle signals. Women in particular often display rich layers of nonverbal communication that psychology has helped us understand. First, let's look at body language. Research shows that women are generally more expressive with their nonverbal cues. For instance, women tend to make more eye contact to build trust, and they often nod more frequently during conversations. Not necessarily to agree, but to encourage and show that they are actively listening. A smile, a tilt of the head, or even crossing the arms can all reveal comfort levels, emotions, and attitudes. Body language is a powerful tool women use to create connection, express empathy, and sometimes to protect themselves. Next, we come to love language. According to psychologist Dr. Gary Chapman, there are 5 main love languages: words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, physical touch, and receiving gifts. Studies suggest that many women value quality time and words of affirmation highly. This reflects a desire for emotional intimacy, reassurance, and connection in relationships. Understanding a woman's love language isn't just about romance. It's also about strengthening bonds with friends, family, and colleagues by recognizing how she feels most appreciated. Finally, let's consider human behavior more broadly. Women often display higher levels of empathy, which is linked to both biology and socialization. They are also more likely to pick up on micro-expressions, those tiny facial cues that reveal hidden emotions. This sensitivity can make women especially skilled at reading people and responding to emotional needs. At the same time, psychology reminds us that while trends exist, every individual is unique. Personality, culture, and personal experiences shape behavior just as much as gender. In conclusion, understanding psychology facts about women's body language, love language, and human behavior helps us communicate better, respect differences, and build healthier relationships. It teaches us to look beyond words and to pay attention to the small signals that reveal so much about human connection. Thank you. When we talk about women's psychology and human behavior, one of the most striking aspects is the way body language plays a central role in communication. Women, more than men in many cases, tend to express their emotions, intentions, and thoughts through nonverbal cues. Body language is like a silent conversation running parallel to spoken words, often revealing truths that words alone cannot capture. A glance, a smile, or even a shift in posture can convey entire stories, and psychology has long shown that women often excel in this form of expression. Eye contact, for example, is one of the most powerful nonverbal tools. When a woman maintains eye contact, it often communicates trust, interest, or attentiveness. Unlike a quick glance, sustained eye contact can create a sense of intimacy and emotional connection. On the other hand, avoiding eye contact might signal discomfort, nervousness, or even the desire to distance herself from a situation. What's interesting is that eye contact is not just about attraction or confidence, it also shows empathy and the ability to listen. Many women use it to reassure others that they are truly present in the conversation, making the other person feel valued. Smiling is another key element of women's body language. A genuine smile can instantly put people at ease, signaling warmth and approachability. Women often smile more frequently than men. And while this can sometimes be misinterpreted, psychology suggests it's a reflection of social conditioning as well as natural tendencies toward empathy. A smile doesn't always mean happiness. It can also act as a social tool to ease tension, show politeness, or soften a difficult message. For instance, smiling while giving feedback can make criticism more digestible. This subtle use of nonverbal expression shows how deeply body language is tied to emotional intelligence. Gestures and posture also play an important role. When a woman leans slightly forward during a conversation, it usually indicates engagement and interest. Crossed arms, on the other hand, can mean defensiveness or discomfort, although context matters greatly. A head tilt often signals curiosity or empathy, showing that she is tuned in to the other person's words. Psychology tells us that these subtle shifts are often automatic, meaning they can reveal genuine feelings more accurately than spoken language. Another fascinating aspect is mirroring. Women often unconsciously mirror the body language of the person they are speaking to, reflecting their movements or gestures. This behavior creates a sense of connection and rapport, making the other person feel understood. Mirroring is not done deliberately, most of the time. Rather, it is a natural sign of empathy and alignment. It can strengthen bonds in both personal and professional relationships because it communicates, "I am on the same wavelength as you." Even the tone of voice, though not strictly body language, interacts with nonverbal expression. Women may adjust their tone, pitch, and pace to match the emotional atmosphere of a conversation. A softer tone can express compassion, while a more animated tone can display excitement or urgency. These vocal cues, combined with facial expressions and gestures, create a layered form of communication that is rich with meaning. What makes women's body language so fascinating is that it is not only expressive, but also highly perceptive. Studies show that women are generally more skilled at reading nonverbal signals in others. This heightened sensitivity may stem from both biology and social conditioning, but the effect is clear. Women often notice subtle changes in posture, facial expressions, or tone that others might overlook. This ability to decode nonverbal cues strengthens communication and allows for deeper emotional understanding. Of course, it's important to note that body language is shaped by culture, personality, and context. What might signal confidence in one culture could be seen as disrespect in another. Similarly, not every woman expresses herself in the same way. Some may be more reserved, while others are highly expressive. Psychology reminds us that while general patterns exist, individuality always plays a role. Ultimately, women's body language is not just about attraction or appearance, but about the deeper psychology of human connection. It reflects empathy, attentiveness, and the innate human desire to be understood. By paying attention to these nonverbal cues, we can better appreciate the silent language that runs through every interaction. In many ways, body language is the unspoken bridge between people, and women often use it masterfully to build trust, convey care, and express emotions that words alone cannot fully capture. When most people see a woman nodding during a conversation, they immediately assume it means agreement. In reality, psychology shows us something much more interesting. For many women, nodding is not about saying yes to what is being said, but about showing engagement and attentiveness. It's a subtle nonverbal cue that communicates, "I hear you, I understand you, and I want you to keep talking." This small gesture reflects a deeper layer of communication, one that is tied closely to empathy, social connection, and human behavior. Nodding is one of the simplest, most universal gestures. Yet its meaning can change depending on the context. For women, nodding is often a way of keeping the flow of conversation alive. It encourages the other person to feel validated and understood. Imagine a scenario where someone is explaining a complicated idea or sharing a personal story. When the woman listening nods, she's not necessarily agreeing with every point, but signaling, "I'm with you. Keep going." This is why conversations with women often feel supportive and interactive. The nod acts as a bridge between the speaker and the listener. What's fascinating is that nodding can serve multiple purposes at once. It can be a sign of politeness, especially in social or professional settings, where women may use it to show respect for the speaker's ideas, even if they don't fully agree. It can also be a way of reducing conflict or tension, softening the atmosphere by demonstrating openness. Psychology studies have shown that women are more likely than men to use nodding as a conversational tool, which ties back to broader patterns of empathy and relational communication. This doesn't mean men don't nod, but for many women, it becomes an ingrained habit that goes beyond the literal meaning of yes. The subtlety of nodding also connects to emotional intelligence. Women often use it to mirror emotions, signaling that they are emotionally present. For example, when a friend shares something sad, a gentle nod, combined with eye contact, tells the speaker, "I feel your pain, and I am here for you." In a workplace setting, nodding can motivate a colleague to continue sharing ideas, creating a safe environment for collaboration. It is less about agreement and more about encouragement, acting as a supportive cue that words sometimes fail to capture. Another layer to this behavior lies in cultural conditioning. From a young age, many girls are encouraged to be good listeners, to show attentiveness, and to nurture connections. Nodding becomes a nonverbal expression of these values, often carried into adulthood. This is one reason why conversations with women are often described as warmer or more engaging. Their nonverbal cues, like nodding, smiling, or leaning in, reinforce the feeling of being truly listened to. This doesn't mean every nod is deliberate. In fact, most are unconscious, but the effect they create of empathy and validation is powerful. At the same time, it is important to note that nodding can sometimes be misunderstood. A speaker may assume agreement where none exists, leading to confusion later on. For example, in negotiations or discussions, a woman's nod might be taken as a commitment, when in fact it is only a sign of understanding. This is why being aware of the deeper psychological meaning of nodding matters so much. It helps both men and women avoid misinterpretations and appreciate the intent behind the gesture. Beyond conversations, nodding also plays a role in building trust. People generally feel more comfortable opening up when they sense their listener is engaged. A nod reassures the speaker that they are not being dismissed or ignored. This small but powerful cue can strengthen relationships, whether in friendships, families, or professional environments. It's an example of how nonverbal communication often shapes the quality of human connection more than words alone. In the end, nodding is much more than a reflex. For women, it reflects empathy, attentiveness, and the desire to connect. It is one of those subtle behaviors that may seem ordinary but holds extraordinary meaning. When viewed through the lens of psychology, it reminds us that listening is not just about hearing words, but about creating an emotional space where the speaker feels safe, understood, and encouraged. The nod becomes a silent message, a reassurance that says, "I see you, I hear you, and your voice matters." And that small act of acknowledgement can make all the difference in how conversations flow and how relationships grow. Love is one of the deepest human needs, and psychology tells us that people express and receive it in different ways. The idea of love languages, introduced by Dr. Gary Chapman, gives us a framework to understand these patterns. The 5 love languages are words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, physical touch, and receiving gifts. While everyone has their own unique blend, many women are particularly drawn to quality time and words of affirmation. This doesn't mean gifts or physical affection are unimportant, but it highlights how strongly emotional intimacy and verbal reassurance shape their sense of connection. Quality time, at its core, is about presence. For many women, simply spending uninterrupted time with someone they care about speaks volumes. It's not about the activity itself, but about the attention that comes with it. Sharing a meal, taking a walk, or even sitting together in comfortable silence can feel like powerful expressions of love. What matters most is that the person is fully there, without distractions, without rushing, without letting their attention wander elsewhere. This form of love language reflects a desire for closeness, for a space where conversations can flow naturally and bonds can deepen. When someone invests their time, it communicates, "You are important to me." Words of affirmation, on the other hand, tap into the power of language. Compliments, encouragement, and verbal acknowledgement are incredibly meaningful. A simple, "I appreciate you," or "I'm proud of you," can uplift and strengthen emotional security. For women who resonate with this love language, these affirmations are not just nice extras. They are essential reminders of being valued and seen. Psychology shows that positive words reinforce self-esteem, reduce stress, and increase relationship satisfaction. Even small gestures, like leaving a note or sending a thoughtful message, can have a lasting impact. What makes these two love languages especially important is the way they connect to emotional intimacy. Many women value not just being loved, but being understood. Quality time allows for conversations that uncover thoughts, dreams, and fears, while words of affirmation provide reassurance that those inner worlds are appreciated. Together they create a safe emotional environment where vulnerability feels possible. This is why, in relationships, women often emphasize communication and shared moments. It's not about grand gestures, but about consistency and genuine presence. Acts of service, physical touch, and gifts also play important roles, but they often hold a different weight depending on the individual. Acts of service, like helping with tasks or offering support, can be powerful expressions of care because they ease burdens. Physical touch, whether it's holding hands or a warm hug, conveys comfort and affection in a way words cannot. Gifts, though sometimes misunderstood as materialistic, are often symbolic tokens of thoughtfulness and love. The key insight from psychology is that no single love language is better than another. What matters is knowing which ones resonate most strongly with the individual. It's also important to recognize that love languages are shaped by culture, upbringing, and personal experiences. A woman who grew up in an environment where affection was rarely spoken might crave words of affirmation as an adult because it fills a void. Another who experienced quality family time in her childhood may carry that as her standard for love. Understanding love languages means looking beyond surface behavior to see the emotional needs underneath. This awareness helps avoid misunderstandings, like when one person expresses love through gifts while the other longs for quality time and feels overlooked. In everyday life, the difference can be subtle but profound. Imagine a woman whose love language is quality time. Her partner brings her expensive gifts but is always busy or distracted when they are together. Despite the effort, she might still feel unloved because her core need for presence is unmet. Or take another woman whose love language is words of affirmation. She may receive countless acts of service, dinners cooked, chores completed, but without hearing "I love you" or "you mean so much to me," she might still feel emotionally distant. These examples show that expressing love effectively is less about effort in general and more about effort in the right direction. Love languages teach us that affection is not one size fits all. They encourage us to listen more closely, to notice what makes the other person light up, and to adjust our ways of expressing care. For many women, that adjustment means creating moments that matter and offering words that affirm. In doing so, we not only express love, but also create the emotional foundation on which lasting, meaningful relationships are built. One of the most striking psychological traits often observed in women is their capacity for empathy. Empathy is the ability to sense, understand, and share the emotions of others, and it sits at the heart of human connection. Part of this heightened empathy comes from biological influences. Research in neuroscience has shown that women often have stronger activation in brain regions linked to emotional processing and recognition. Hormonal differences, particularly the influence of oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, play a role in enhancing social sensitivity and nurturing instincts. This biological foundation doesn't determine behavior on its own, but it provides a base that, combined with social conditioning, contributes to women's empathetic tendencies. From a very young age, many girls are encouraged to pay attention to feelings, to be considerate of others, and to take on roles that involve care and support. These cultural expectations shape habits of empathy that often continue into adulthood. For example, a woman may notice when a friend's tone shifts slightly, or when a colleague seems unusually quiet in a meeting. She may pick up on these subtle cues without anyone saying a word, and her natural response might be to ask, "Are you okay?" or to offer comfort in a way that feels effortless. This ability to read micro-expressions and small changes in behavior is one reason women are often seen as intuitive, though psychology would explain it as heightened attentiveness to nonverbal signals. Empathy doesn't only manifest in personal relationships, it plays a major role in professional environments as well. Women often bring emotional intelligence to workplaces, using empathy to manage conflicts, build collaboration, and create inclusive atmospheres. A manager who notices when a team member feels overwhelmed and offers support is practicing empathy in action. In leadership, this quality fosters trust and loyalty because people feel seen and valued. While traditional views of success often emphasize logic and assertiveness, modern psychology and organizational studies increasingly recognize empathy as a critical skill, one in which women frequently excel. Another fascinating aspect of empathy in women's behavior is how it connects to listening styles. Women are more likely to engage in what psychologists call active listening, where they not only hear the words but also pay attention to tone, emotion, and body language. They often respond with verbal affirmations like, "I understand," or "that must be hard," which reassure the speaker that their emotions are valid. This ability to create an emotional mirror allows for deeper connections because it makes people feel that their inner world is acknowledged. However, it is important to remember that empathy is not without challenges. Women who are highly empathetic can sometimes feel emotionally drained, especially if they are constantly tuning in to the feelings of others without caring for their own needs. This phenomenon, often referred to as emotional burnout or compassion fatigue, highlights the need for balance. Psychology emphasizes that while empathy is a strength, it requires boundaries to remain healthy. The ability to care deeply must be paired with self-care to avoid being overwhelmed by the emotional weight of others. Cultural differences also play a role in how empathy is expressed. In some societies, women's empathy is celebrated and seen as a natural strength, while in others it is undervalued or even taken for granted. Despite these differences, the underlying psychological patterns remain. Women often demonstrate a strong ability to tune in to emotions and adjust their behavior accordingly. Whether through comforting words, attentive listening, or small acts of kindness, empathy becomes a defining feature of their interactions. In everyday life, this empathetic sensitivity can transform relationships. A mother sensing her child's unspoken worry, a friend offering comfort before being asked, or a partner intuitively knowing when reassurance is needed. All of these moments reveal the quiet power of empathy. It goes beyond logic and into the realm of human connection, reminding us that being understood is one of the most profound forms of love and care. Ultimately, empathy in women's behavior is more than just a trait. It is a lens through which they often view the world. It influences how they communicate, how they respond, and how they build bonds that last. When we think about communication, it's easy to focus on words. Yet psychology tells us that nonverbal cues often speak louder than spoken language. Women, in particular, tend to rely on and interpret these subtle signals in ways that add depth to every interaction. Body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, and micro-expressions all create a rich layer of communication that can reveal emotions more honestly than carefully chosen words. This is one of the reasons conversations with women can feel so emotionally engaging. They are often attuned not only to what is being said, but also to what is left unsaid. Consider the way a smile can instantly shift the atmosphere. While words might be polite and neutral, a genuine smile lights up the interaction with warmth, signaling comfort and openness. Conversely, if someone says they are fine but their shoulders are tense, their eyes downcast, and their tone flat, those nonverbal signals tell a very different story. Women often notice these inconsistencies, reading between the lines to uncover the truth behind the words. It is not about suspicion or doubt, but about recognizing that emotions often slip through in ways that speech cannot conceal. Tone of voice is another powerful channel. The same sentence can carry entirely different meanings, depending on whether it is spoken softly, sharply, or with hesitation. Women are generally more sensitive to these vocal nuances, picking up on frustration, enthusiasm, or sadness, even when the speaker tries to mask their feelings. This awareness allows them to respond in ways that feel more empathetic and attuned. For instance, a gentle change in their own tone or a reassuring phrase can ease tension and open the door for more honest communication. Microexpressions are perhaps the most subtle form of nonverbal communication. These are fleeting facial expressions that flash for only a fraction of a second, often revealing emotions someone may not want to admit. Psychology research shows that women are often quicker to spot these microexpressions, which might explain why they are sometimes described as intuitive. In reality, it is a finely tuned sensitivity to detail that enables them to sense when someone is hurt, annoyed, or excited before the person even says a word. This ability makes conversations richer and relationships stronger, because it creates space for emotional truths to be acknowledged. Nonverbal communication also plays a role in how women themselves express feelings. A tilt of the head, the way they cross their arms, or the rhythm of their movements can reveal comfort levels or emotional states. For example, leaning in during a conversation signals engagement and interest, while pulling back may suggest discomfort. These cues often happen unconsciously, yet they shape how others perceive the interaction. Psychology reminds us that people often believe body language more than words because it seems more genuine and less filtered. The importance of nonverbal cues becomes even clearer in moments of conflict or tension. Words can be chosen carefully to avoid confrontation, but body language often reveals the truth. A woman might say she is not upset, but her clenched jaw or lack of eye contact might tell a different story. Likewise, when offering comfort, words may feel inadequate, but a soft touch on the shoulder or a warm embrace communicates volumes. These silent gestures cut through the limitations of language and reach directly to the heart. Cultural differences shape these signals too. In some societies, direct eye contact is seen as confidence, while in others it may be considered disrespectful. Women adapt to these norms, adjusting how they use and interpret nonverbal cues based on context. Yet, across cultures, the underlying truth remains. Much of what is communicated is not spoken. Recognizing this reality can prevent misunderstandings and foster stronger connections, especially when words alone fall short. It is also worth noting that nonverbal communication can create both clarity and confusion. While a nod or smile often enhances understanding, sometimes signals can be misinterpreted. A polite smile might be seen as interest when it is only courtesy, or a nod might be mistaken for agreement instead of encouragement. This is why paying attention to clusters of cues rather than single gestures is so important. Women often excel at this holistic interpretation, considering tone, expression, and posture together to arrive at a clearer understanding. Ultimately, the power of nonverbal communication lies in its honesty. Words can be chosen, rehearsed, or even manipulated, but body language often slips through unconsciously, revealing the emotions beneath. For women, this layer of communication serves as both an expressive tool and a perceptive skill. It allows them to connect more deeply, respond more thoughtfully, and build relationships rooted in authenticity. When we pay attention to these silent signals, we learn to communicate not just with our mouths, but with our entire selves. And in those unspoken moments, an understanding glance, a reassuring gesture, a subtle change in tone, human connection finds its truest voice. When we talk about psychology and patterns of behavior, it is easy to get carried away with generalizations. Two women might both smile frequently, but for very different reasons. One may smile as a genuine reflection of her warmth and openness, while another might use it as a protective tool to ease tension or mask discomfort. Both are following a similar behavioral pattern, but the meaning behind it is shaped by their individual experiences and choices. This is why interpretation requires sensitivity. Body language and behavior cannot be understood in isolation, but must be seen through the lens of each person's story. Personality plays an especially strong role in shaping behavior. An extroverted woman may use expansive gestures, animated facial expressions, and constant eye contact to communicate, while an introverted woman might prefer stillness, subtle nods, and quiet attentiveness. Neither style is more or less feminine or psychological. They are simply different manifestations of personality. Similarly, cultural background can transform the meaning of certain cues. In some cultures, avoiding eye contact is a sign of respect, while in others it may be perceived as evasiveness. A behavior that seems universal at first glance often turns out to be deeply influenced by context. Life experience adds yet another layer of individuality. A woman who has faced challenges may develop a heightened sensitivity to nonverbal signals as a way of protecting herself, while another who has grown up in a safe and supportive environment may express emotions more freely. Trauma, joy, hardships, and triumphs all leave marks on behavior, shaping how a person communicates and connects. This is why even though psychology offers patterns, those patterns are never destiny. They are guidelines, not guarantees. The importance of individuality becomes especially clear in relationships. Imagine a man who assumes his partner must value words of affirmation because most women do, when in fact her true love language is acts of service. She might feel misunderstood not because he doesn't care, but because he is loving her in a way that doesn't align with her needs. This simple example shows how dangerous assumptions can be. Understanding requires curiosity, patience, and respect for the uniqueness of each person. Asking, listening, and observing are far more powerful than relying on stereotypes, no matter how well-intentioned they might be. Even empathy, which is often highlighted as a strength in women, is not distributed evenly. Some women naturally feel deep empathy and find joy in caring for others, while others may guard their emotions more carefully. Both approaches are valid, shaped by the individuality of the person. What matters is not fitting into a mold, but recognizing the diversity of human behavior. This diversity is what makes relationships interesting, conversations rich, and psychology itself endlessly fascinating. Individual differences also challenge us to rethink what we consider normal. Too often, we measure people against averages or common trends, forgetting that outliers are just as human and meaningful. A woman who does not smile often, who prefers solitude, or who does not resonate with common love languages is not less than. She is simply herself, expressing her personality in a way that is authentic. Psychology, at its best, encourages us to embrace this uniqueness rather than reduce people to categories. In everyday interactions, remembering individuality can prevent misunderstanding. Instead of assuming that a nod means agreement, one can pause to clarify. Instead of expecting empathy to be expressed in a certain way, one can learn how each person shows care. This shift from assumption to awareness deepens respect and allows for more genuine connection. When we truly see people as individuals, we stop trying to fit them into patterns and instead honor the complexity of who they are. Ultimately, while psychology highlights fascinating trends in women's behavior, body language, and love languages, it is individuality that makes each story unique. Patterns help us understand the general, but individuality helps us connect with the particular. The beauty of human behavior lies in this balance. Knowing that while we share common traits, no two people will ever express them in exactly the same way. Recognizing this truth allows us to communicate more thoughtfully, love more deeply, and approach each relationship with the curiosity and respect it deserves.